Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and I've got something interesting to show you, as always. So, I've got a deck of cards here. You can have the spectator shuffle the cards. They can mix them until they're absolutely happy, and you have them place the cards in your hand behind your back, and you ask them to cut off a group of cards, any number, and they cut off a group and they take them. And you ask them to go ahead and take a look and ask it, do you know about how many you cut? Maybe about 18 or so. Could you take the top card off of the remaining group of cards behind my back? And that will be your card. So they take the card off where they cut and they take a look at it. And they memorize that and they can put it back. Of course, everything can be assembled at that point. So if you recap what's gone on here, they shuffled the cards, they mix them entirely, performer does nothing, they're placed behind the back, the spectator cuts off a group, they take the next card, the top card, and they look at that, and that is their card. So this is known as the holdout force, because obviously that was a forced card, right? I have this one sitting out here to represent the prediction. So this is a holdout force, and the book, Anneman's pamphlet on forcing, actually has a whole bunch of holdout type forces. There's more than I took the time to count. There's so many different iterations of this type of force. This is one that's listed in there verbatim. Essentially, this is how it's listed, and there's a few ways to do this. The one that's in the book recommends taking the force card, which in this case was the 3 of spades, taking the force card and clipping it to the inside of a jacket. So obviously this is kind of dated terminology here, but the assumption is that a gentleman magician would have a dinner jacket on, a sport coat, something like that, and there would be a clip, and then this could be clipped on the inside of the jacket, just inside the edge of the hem there, and then the cards could be shuffled, of course, and as they're behind the back, the spectator takes off a group, takes those away. And then what can happen is behind the cover of the back, this card can be slipped down from behind the jacket, placed on, and then that becomes the force. So it's held out in some way. Now, obviously, the best update to this is simply to put it in your back pocket. If you have this sitting snugly down inside your back pocket, and your pocket is loose enough that you can reach in there with a thumb to retrieve the card and take it back out and put it on top, you could hold out the card and force it in that way using that kind of a ruse. Now, there's other types of holdout forces that are mentioned in the book. Another one that's worth mentioning is kind of the classic up your sleeve sort of holdout, and that is to have a card, again, presuming kind of a sport coat sort of situation, or a dress shirt where the sleeve is relatively open. And the card could be sitting just inside the sleeve, and it's able to be dropped out from a loose kind of sleeve situation into a hat, a borrowed hat or something like that. So cards could be shuffled, cards in holdout in the sleeve. The cards are shuffled, and then they're dribbled into a hat, and then of course the performer can reach in, and then the card would drop out and then into the palm or into the fingers, and then the card can be drawn out, and that is the force. So that's one. Of course, the card could be held out inside of a hat or something. If it's held inside of the band on the hat or some other kind of device, there's certainly sorts of change bags, egg bags kinds of apparatus, or even they make egg bag type handkerchiefs where you could have a holdout card, cards dribbled in there, shake around, and the performer reaches in and they take out the held out card as the force. Of course, holdouts are very popular in gambling type routines. Cards can be held out underneath the edge of a table in a clip, and the cards could be shuffled by the spectator and then set kind of sloppily on the table. And in the process of gathering them up, the card can be pulled from the holdout under the table and slipped onto the bottom. So that's another application for a holdout. Obviously, a card can be held out in the moment using card sleights. Using either a palm, you could top palm a card and hold it out, have the spectators shuffle the cards, and then as they're brought back, the palmed card can be placed back on top of the deck. If you are comfortable palming cards, that would be something you can do. I'm not typically comfortable palming cards for durations of time. I am comfortable in palming a card for a quick split moment where I can get it somewhere. If I'm palming it off quickly to ditch it or dump it, I can do that kind of thing. And certainly you can hold out in that way. You can take the cards. You could have a borrowed deck and you could call a card, or cut a card to the top, and then you have that card all ready to go, and then you can ditch it out and give the deck out to be shuffled, and then at the right opportune moment, when the cards come back, you can reintroduce the card back in using the palm, setting it on top, whatever the case may be. Copying is more my speed. So copying a card is a little bit more my speed. It's a lot easier for me to cop a card than to top palm it or bottom palm it into the palm of the hand. And of course, copying is whenever you have a card of interest, say they have a card that's selected, placed back in, and you're going to use this as sort of a forced reveal. We talked about that in the last video, that forces can be used in Revelation. If you kind of reverse the procedure and you use the force rather than using the force to get them to take a card that you desire, you can use the force rather in the revelation side of an effect, either in a free agency selection on their part or a free selection on your part. So I've called a card that's been reintroduced into the deck, and then I can cop it out. I can set the cards out there for have them shuffled, and I'm holding out over here in the hand. And whenever I'm ready, I take the cards back, and it's really, really easy to go from copped position back onto the bottom of the deck. And of course, you can reveal that any way that you want. You could shuffle it back to the top, or when using copping, you're really set up best for a bottom deal kind of situation. So you could do the free agency revelation. Go ahead and tell me when to stop. Say stop. They say stop. You can say one more, one less. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you. One less, like that, and then you can, of course, bottom deal out their selection that's been copped out and reintroduced. So all kinds of different possibilities there with the holdout style force. Cards can be held out really anywhere. You can hold a card out, in a book. You could have a card held out in a book on a bookshelf or on a coffee table, have the card held out there and sitting ready to be picked up at any moment. So cards are shuffled and they're brought back, set on top of the book, and of course you can pick it up and grab your holdout card. You don't even have to be clean about it. You just stick the card anywhere you want. It can be set underneath a mat, could be set underneath a handkerchief, underneath a napkin on a table, could be set underneath a coffee cup saucer, can be set really anywhere where it can be attained and reintroduced into the deck after it's been shuffled. So that's really one of the best ways to have a deck freely shuffled and keep control of something, is get the thing out of there and then put it back in, or have a duplicate that's outside and then reintroduce it. So the holdout force, pretty easy, kind of clever way to force a card on someone. This behind the back business, cut off some cards. How many do you have there? About 17, 18, something like that. Why don't you take the next card? And you've introduced it, and there they have it. So that is the holdout force, and that accounts for quite a few types of forces inside of Animan, and a lot of different variations and iterations of that kind of concept. So good luck with that. Happy magicking.